Mayor Muriel E. Bowser of Washington on Wednesday night issued an order extending the city's public emergency for 15 days, warning that extremists who support President Trump might continue to wreak havoc in the nation's capital. The order empowers officials to reduce the hours of operation for businesses, order people off the street if a curfew is issued, and expend funds as needed to protect public safety. The directive, which will expire at 3 p.m. on January 21, extends the emergency through the inauguration of President-elect Joseph R. Biden Jr. 20. It came hours after Ms. Bowser imposed a citywide curfew from 6 p.m. on Wednesday until 6 a.m. on Thursday. In a statement explaining the extension, Ms. Bowser pointed to the pro-Trump protesters who came to the city, for the purpose of engaging in violence and destruction and have engaged in violence and destruction. They have fired chemical irritants, bricks, bottles, and guns, Ms. Bowser wrote. They have breached the security of the Capitol and their destructive and riotous behavior has the potential to spread beyond the Capitol. She added that, President Trump continues to fan rage and violence by contending that the presidential election was invalid, and said, some persons can be expected to continue their violent protests through the inauguration. There are still protesters, and even more law enforcement, around the Capitol in Washington tonight, several hours after a curfew was imposed following a pro-Trump mob storming of the building. Rattled but defiant, members of Congress returned to the Capitol on Wednesday night to resume counting the electoral votes from the November election, a process that leaders on both sides of the aisle said would not be derailed by the earlier siege of the building by President Trump's supporters. This temple to democracy was desecrated, its windows smashed, our offices vandalized, Senator Chuck Schumer, the minority leader, said as the Senate reconvened. Mr. Schumer, who is poised to become the majority leader after Democrats won both of Tuesday's runoffs in Georgia, said that January 6, 2021, was a date that would live in infamy, invoking President Franklin D. Roosevelt's phrase after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. He called Mr. Trump's supporters who stormed the building, goons and thugs. Moments earlier, Senator Mitch McConnell, the majority leader, called the rioters unhinged, and referred to the siege as a failed insurrection. We will not bow to lawlessness or intimidation, he said. From the dais of the Senate, Vice President Mike Pence, who was evacuated from the Capitol during the breach, thanked law enforcement officers for restoring order and